So thanks everybody again for tuning in today. Go ahead, drop a like and subscribe. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Marshall Pipkin. He's going to be chatting with us about the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP. Say that 10 times fast. Marshall's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's a good banker. He's been in the banking game about 30 years. You can check him out at LoneStarNationalBank.com. And we're going to talk about the Payroll Protection Program, which is the forgivable loan program in conjunction with the SBA that was passed by Congress to help businesses with the COVID-19 downturn.
Congress started, last year for businesses that have been hit by downturns in sales due to COVID-19 and et cetera, and has been extended and continued in various permutations up until today. And I get questions about it from time to time. I know Marshall gets a lot of questions about it from time to time. So I figured I'd have him on to talk about this a little bit and hopefully answer some questions for folks. So welcome, Marshall.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it.
So I guess let's get right into it. So as I briefly mentioned, we have this is not the first PPP that has happened, right? So maybe can you talk about your experience and Lone Star's experience with the first iteration of the PPP, which was what in the kind of about the middle of 2020, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, it started actually around. I think it got rolled out in April, and it took a while for a lot of institutions to figure out how to process. And it was a lot of long nights and weekends trying to get everything lined up because we knew that there was a lot of people out there that were going to need some help. But yeah, it was a learning process, and actually. It gave a lot of institutions, especially community-oriented institutions, the opportunity to meet a lot of new people because, quite frankly, some institutions didn't pick it up quite fast enough, and so everybody was kind of panicked in this mode of COVID. What are we going to do? My business is shut down. Can I survive? How am I going to pay my bills? So there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress out there during those times, and so either you were quite frankly, sitting at home trying to figure out what to do, or you were people like us who going crazy trying to figure out what to do. So there was a lot of tension during those times. But it eventually calmed down. We started working through things, got our processes lined up, and got to meet a lot of new people. And it's been beneficial across the board for a lot of good reasons.
Right, right. And I know a lot of this was kind of the lifesaver that saved a lot of small businesses. I know certainly folks like me who work with a lot of these businesses and of course the business owners themselves. I mean, we all appreciate you and everybody like you who was kind of burning the midnight oil to make that first PPP happen and kind of keep those businesses afloat when COVID was really raging. Um, but we're not talking about that part of the PPP, right? We're talking about what's going on now. So the second round of the PPP, or round 2.5, or however you want to call it, right? The window for applications to that one had originally closed, or was originally scheduled to close on March 31st of this year. Um, but there was some legislation that has been passed that extended that to the end of May. Is that right?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So what are you seeing in terms of application volume? Is there still a ton of demand for it? What are you seeing from your end?
So two things kind of impacted with this, what we're calling the second draw, or the second round. First off, a lot of businesses that had that type of need and that had quite a number of employees, those got taken care of pretty quickly in the second round. But as time has gone on in the second round, because it's been going on since mid-January, we're starting to see a lot of people that didn't realize that they qualified for a PPP come in through the doors. So instead of companies qualifying, you're having a lot of individuals or business owners or even people that get paid through 1099s start to get paid. So we're still seeing quite a bit of volume. It's just the amount of the loans have gone down, and so we're still talking about it, trying to get let people know there's a lot of institutions that are still taking the applications, and just trying to help out. But it's important to know that's one of the distinctions for people that never got it before. You still qualify for the first round if you just found out you get it. The other
Right. Okay. So for folks who have large payrolls, it's still sized based on what, 10 weeks of payroll, is that right?
That's correct. So
Right.
it's about 2.5 months for most businesses worth of payroll. Essentially, what it breaks down to.
Okay, and it's more or less the same for a self-employed, because I know that for the first program, or the first draw, that self-employed and 1099 and all this were explicitly eligible, but I guess what y'all are seeing is that a lot of those people maybe didn't realize that they were eligible because it's called the payroll protection, and they thought, well, I don't have a payroll, so I'm not eligible. And now everybody's kind of figuring out like, oh, hey, it covers me too.
That's correct. Yeah,
Right.
we're seeing quite a bit of that.
Okay. So how is it sized for the second draw? If I applied for a PPP loan in the first draw and I got that, is the second draw sized similarly? Is it also 2.5 months of payroll?
Yes, it is. There was a couple of small changes that took place within it. First off, if you're within the well, like we say entertainment industry, but basically it's if your NAICS code starts with a 7.2. So, for example, restaurants, bars, movie venues, those type of entertainment venues, because they were hit the hardest, they actually went up to 3.5 times their monthly salary. So you're looking at 3.5 months for those industries. But the second and the harder part for those that are getting their second draw is that you had to demonstrate a decrease of 25% in your gross sales during a period. So, example, you had to compare a quarterly decrease of 25%, say from Q2 in 2019 to 2020 on that same quarter. And as long as you could demonstrate that 25% decrease, then you qualified for the second draw.
And so that can be any quarter year over year. If I had a decrease in, Q1 or Q3 or whatever, right? Because
Correct.
I guess COVID really kind of got ferocious in what, February, March type time frame. So okay, so that's good news for the restaurants and the bars who have been particularly hit hard, that they get an upsized loan, right? So there's another thing. I know there was some controversy that several very large businesses who were not really the intended recipients of the PPP program managed to obtain sizable loans during the first draw. And as I understand it, there's been some kind of income cap placed on it for the second draw, and those businesses are not going to be eligible, or not as eligible, or can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. There was some industries that were blocked from being able to apply, and it's a fairly limited list. But for example, businesses that did industry financing, if they were in that business, then you couldn't qualify for a PPP. But essentially, when the program first rolled out, anybody could apply for the PPP. And so it was not very restrictive at all. And so a lot of institutions, regardless of size, was anxious of securing some of those funds. We've even heard of stories where some of these larger institutions that really didn't have a decrease started to realize, you know what, we really don't need the money. So they actually gave the money back and kind of withdrew their application, or closed out the loan, if you will. So there was some notoriety, I guess, going around with the program. But we try to do our best to make sure, but essentially the onus is on the individual borrower to maintain their responsibility for the loan.
Right. And so again, this is the same as the first go round in that this is a forgivable loan, correct? In that it starts as a straight up loan, you have to repay it, and the interest terms, if I recall, are quite favorable, but it is a loan nonetheless, and it can be forgiven, but it's not automatic. You have to apply to have it forgiven through the SBA. So that all of that whole process still remains the same through the second draw. Is that right?
That is correct. The nice thing is, about the same time that they released the second draw, the SBA came out with a one-page forgiveness sheet for those loans that were under 150,000, which initially we were looking at, in October, November, which was 6 months after the first loan started processing, that it it became a lot easier to get the loans forgiven. And you keep in mind, the whole purpose of the program was to replace people's paychecks. And so we wanted to make sure, as much as we could, that the borrowers understood that when it came to forgiveness, that 60% of the funds needed to go towards payroll for businesses that had got the PPP loan. And for most part, people didn't even want to play that game. They just wrote payroll for the next 6 months and made it all 100% go to payroll. So there was no question that the funds could be forgiven. And the real goal for both us as a financial institution and for the individual borrowers to get the loan forgiven. So we do things up front to make sure that we're getting qualified applicants, that they're in the right industry, that they do meet the 25% reduction for the second draw, things like that, just to make sure that we're positioned to get those loans forgiven.
So you're seeing a pretty high forgiveness rate for the first round of it.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's good news, because like you say, it was intended to be stimulus, right? This is meant to replace money that was gone because of the shutdown. So that's good to hear. So I guess my last question is, if I'm a business owner and this is I'm not sure where to start with the PPP, and I'm not sure if I'm eligible or if I'm not eligible, or I just don't know where to go. Kind of what would you recommend to be my first step? Where should I go? Who should I talk to?
So I would recommend normally two things. Most people deal with an accountant or some type of CPA that should be familiar with it, but as a resource, if they're already connected to somebody. And then I would also recommend just reaching out to smaller banks. A lot of time that knowledge is on the front lines. I mean, we're used to answering questions left and right with people just trying to understand if they qualify, should they apply, things of that nature. And I think most people want to try to help as much as possible. So it's just a matter of seeking the right resources. So we've worked with quite a few CPAs who sent us their pipeline of customers that were interested in it. And so that's been a good resource for folks to understand if they qualify or not, or reach out to a bank as well. I mean, they'll help you understand, as long as they're still taking applications. Most people now understand what's needed, what's required, the forms are accessible, all that kind of good stuff.
Okay. And I want to expand on one more thing that you just mentioned, which is that community banks are kind of playing a little bit more central role in this, right? That at least for the second draw of the PPP, y'all had like a head start and a certain amount that was allocated to you, and all this kind of stuff that that you don't necessarily get the same advantage with a large national bank, right? And so again, I'm kind of plugging you here. I'm sort of advertising, call Marshall, right? But the community banks, do have something to offer in this regard that a huge national bank doesn't necessarily have, right?
You're completely right. A lot of the larger banks directed people to the websites to input their information, to put their all that. It was done automated. So the back office, it took a while for them to create those portals to make that happen. And so what we did as a community bank is we just kind of rolled up our sleeves and dug into it, understood what was required, got the forms ready, started lining up the customers, getting with CPAs that needed it. And so honestly, in our case, I would say about 70% of our customers that went through the PP program never even banked with us. So it was a true reach out to the community to support. And by all means, if anybody has any questions, I'll make myself available. You can reach through Ryan, and we'll get whatever answers y'all need to figure out if it works for you.
Well, there you have it. Thank you very much again for taking the time to chat, Marshall. I know this has been I learned a thing or two, and hopefully everyone who's taken a minute to watch this video can also learn a thing or two, and check out Lone Star National Bank. Give Marshall a call, or give me a call, and whoever you talk to, we'll get you sorted out, right? Everybody is we're all on the same team for this. We're all trying to protect small businesses that have been hit by COVID.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate
Thank you, Marshall.
taking the time.